The Klondike Gold Rush of August 1896. In the late summer of 1896, a discovery along the Klondike River sent waves of anticipation across the continent, gripping restless crowds with breathtaking urgency. Tens of thousands abandoned the comforts of home in pursuit of wealth that they believed would deliver salvation from the economic uncertainty quietly haunting their daily lives. Yet, in every shaking hand clutching a miner's pan, history's invisible fingerprint could be seen, reminding us that every fevered financial rush repeats an ancient, dangerous pattern. Today, our markets pulse with the same hunger for sudden gain and the same fatal blindness to the cycles that have buried empires throughout every age. If investors forget the past's tidal warnings, they risk repeating catastrophes that destroyed civilizations, never realizing which forces truly shape their own fortunes. The birth of a mania. Hope and hype of Klondike's gold became the currency of risk. When that first glint of Klondike gold reached the ears of distant city dwellers, ambition quickly eclipsed caution, and logic fell prey to extraordinary dreams. Entire families liquidated their modest possessions, confident that the Golden North would not only erase hardship, but secure prosperity for generations they might never meet. News outlets broadcast feverish headlines, inflating the promise that anyone, regardless of experience, might become a legend overnight. But as trains and steamers carried hopeful crowds into the freezing unknown, the reality of scarcity began to poison the fantasy that had swept the population. Just as in every bubble throughout history, early insights granted rare advantage, while followers paid dearly for delayed belief in the possibility of endless supply. In makeshift towns, supply shortages triggered panic, causing the price of basic items to multiply beyond what most newcomers could possibly afford. Merchants, sensing opportunity, extended lifelines of credit at rates so predatory, indebted prospectors often found themselves trapped long after finding their first flake of gold. Banks and creditors, eager to profit from the mania, loosened lending standards, inflating balance sheets with paper promises that rested on the frailest margins imaginable. As government officials scrambled to impose control, a patchwork of regulations and taxes emerged, rarely protecting pioneers, always prioritizing the interests atop the financial food chain. Each step deeper into the rush only amplified a dangerous feedback loop, where faith in scarcity overrode rational judgment and fueled greater collective risk exposure. By 1897, luxuries had become unattainable. Basic provisions remained scarce, and many prospectors faced mounting debts that quickly eclipsed all previous savings. Loan defaults cascaded through fragile lending networks, catching even prudent citizens in a trap that, by design, drained entire families of hope and stability for decades. The authorities blamed everything but the system itself, a tactic as ancient as money, crafting narratives that diverted scrutiny away from the shared structures enabling each fresh disaster. No innovation, no regulation, and no temporary windfall could shield vulnerable populations from the consequences of repeating mistakes known since the empires of Rome and Babylon. In each instance, the last arrivals suffered ruin, while a privileged few, connected to money's machinery, moved quietly from one cycle's spoils to the next. By the turn of the century, the Klondike's frenzy faded, but many lessons hardened into policy as banks and governments sought control over future waves of speculation. A few families rebuilt broken lives, but even more watched as their hardships translated directly into new rules designed by those already wealthy enough to weather collapse. Rather than accept responsibility, policymakers heralded new regulatory systems and currency reforms, promising a stability that past generations also believed would end all financial disasters. With each reform, the ordinary saver's power quietly diminished, allowing those closest to the levers of debt creation to dictate how and when future collapses would unfold. The illusion endured, but informed investors realized that cycles never end. They simply evolve, and only those prepared to learn from history are likely to endure. Modern echoes, why the Klondike's frozen cycle matters more than ever. As investors chase digital currencies and central banks experiment with limitless stimulus, the Klondike's pattern re-emerges. Hope for easy wealth, blinds entire societies to hidden risk. Recent innovations only increase systemic fragility, offering ever faster vehicles for the same ancient mistakes. Overcrowding, unchecked credit, inflation, and the quiet siphoning of real wealth. Knowledge of these cycles matters for those who refuse to accept comfort from headlines and require independent validation before placing their trust in the quiet siphoning of reassurances. The world's most resilient investors recognize that true capital preservation demands constant vigilance and humility before the timeless laws of financial history, not faith in novelty. If you pursue not just fortune, but the protection of legacy, subscribe to Money Chronicles for deeper, cyclical insights grounded in rigorous analysis instead of passing trends. Those who walked away from the Klondike with empty hands and lighter spirits left one lesson for posterity. Beware cycles posing as miracles, and never trust the crowd's optimism. When the next tidal wave of market euphoria threatens to erase memory and reason, remember the voices of ages past. Ask what histories repeat as new fortunes are forged and lost. Will you join those who fell prey to hope's illusion, or will you fortify yourself with the knowledge necessary to survive the next avalanche of systemic risk? Where history's warning ends, your journey toward wisdom, security, and true contrarian independence must begin. Are you prepared to listen before the ice cracks once again?